Q&A. I'm just going to read it out. The name's not listed, but it's an anonymous post. Generally speaking, for an accounting student, is it better to join Big Four first as a fresh grad before joining the investment banking industry? It's a very tough question to kind of answer verbatim. I guess it kind of aligns to what your long-term career or long-term ambitions are. And ultimately, going into Big Four is a completely different feel, a completely different profession as opposed to investment banking. It's a good question. I'll definitely pose it to the speakers that we have. I don't know if you want to add anything there, Mohammed. The question is it better to join Big Four initially as a grad before eventually moving on to investment banking?
I can take this one, I guess. So, I mean, from my opinion, obviously getting into investment banking, it's very competitive. That's no secret. The investment banks target the top universities. So if you are at a university that isn't considered one of the top universities, going through the Big Four route can work for you. But I mean, my advice would be keep your options open, especially if you're in your second year. You can, at that point, apply for both the Big Four and the investment banks and see where you get lucky, I guess, and then take it from there, really. But it's not the be. If you don't make it into investment banking straight out of a graduate scheme or straight onto the graduate scheme, it's not the end of the world. There are many other routes, such as going through the Big Four, doing a professional qualification, and then joining 3-4 years down the line.
Cool. Any more questions, please keep them coming through the Q&A. As normal with our events, we do have a dedicated Q&A section at the end, and we do aim to answer all questions, but I'll come on to that later. Given it's just turned 6 minutes past 1 o'clock, I'm now going to start the event. So welcome everyone to Investment Banking Part 2 with a specific focus on sales and trading. My name is Ibra. I will be your host throughout this event, and appreciate everyone taking time out of the weekend to join us today. Just to go on to the next slide, what we have our agenda with. The first couple of areas I'm going to really gloss over because hopefully kind of a lot of you guys are familiar with us now and you've seen how our setup is. But just to go through the agenda, I'm going to quickly talk about our mission. So what GradGurus represents, what it means, what our purpose is. Secondly, going to talk about meeting the team. So for those that joined quite early, you had this opportunity to kind of talk about, we kind of introduce yourselves, myself, Mohammed and Ali. And then I'm going to move on to the crux of the webinar today, which is Jamila and Marie Legrand, who are, don't worry too much about the job titles. They'll kind of, if you don't know what exactly a credit sales analyst or a sales and trading analyst means, don't worry, they kind of like explain that in layman terms to really give you an understanding of what the profession is about. And then, as always, I can see a couple of questions already coming through in the Q&A. We'll have a dedicated Q&A section, which will be conducted by Jamila and Marie. And then lastly, something which is a bit unique that we're doing is breakout rooms, but I'll come on to that in due course. So initially, who are GradGurus? So very quickly, we are an organization set up by some friends from university, and we all benefited in one capacity or another in terms of mentorship. So we had all the friends within the community or people that we knew that helped us throughout the application process, whether that was tips on the interview process, assessment center, or even just a conversation about, this is the career I want to go into. Do you think I'm suited to this? What is consultancy about? What is investment banking about? Even if I were to go into investment banking, what are my options? So just some kind of career advice, it definitely goes a long way. What we want to do now is kind of take that mentorship on a coordinated scale and kind of mass market that, if that makes sense, and kind of bring that to you guys in various different capacities. Meeting the team. So as always, we have a good, strong team. Ali mentioned his background is from EY and he's currently working at Jpmorgan. So we have a good spread across Big Four, but we also have Jama on the far right here, whose background is in chemical engineering as well. So he did a placement at ExxonMobil. And then a bit unique, we have Takia, who is our entrepreneur. And then lastly, we have Mohammed, who mentioned, who's currently in Lebanon, in Beirut, working in a strategy firm. So very quickly, high level, I don't want to spend too much on this because hopefully we've churned out these events since, I think, September, October 2020. So hopefully now you see these as familiar faces. And just to point out, obviously, this is part 2 of investment banking. If for those that attended, part 1 was Ryan, or one of the speakers was Muhammad Afar. So hopefully that's a familiar face to you guys. Right, moving on to the first speaker. So we have Jamila Jaffa, who, as her job title states there below, she is an emerging markets credit sales analyst. I'm just going to invite Jamila to the webinar. If I can ask her to unmute herself and share her, show her screen. And then in the meantime, I'm going to pull up a separate PowerPoint. So just bear with me very quickly. Right, here we go. Yep. Hi, Jamila, how are you?
Hi, good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Again, firstly, thanks for joining us. I've got your presentation up, so I'm just gonna kind of hand over to you as soon as I get my things in the way, and then there we go. Yep, ready when you are, Jamila.
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone, thanks again. Like Ibrahim said, thank you for giving up your Saturday, because Saturday afternoon can't be easy. I will try not to bore you too much. I'll try and keep it interesting, and obviously if you have any questions or comments, it's good if it's interactive, so feel free to interrupt. I think you can unmute yourselves, I believe. So if you have any comments, yeah, at any point, please feel free. So to introduce myself, I work at BNP Paribas and I'm in emerging market credit sales. I'm not sure if you guys know what that is. I know you guys are kind of uni and sixth form, so I'm not sure how familiar you are with what that role is. Sorry if I'm looking down a lot, I have a lot of notes down here. So yeah, so I thought I'd start by telling you what emerging market credit sales is, what sales is. So if you're not familiar with the trading floor, sales sit between the traders and the clients. So that's kind of what I do, what my job is. And if anyone recognizes this picture on the first slide, I'm not sure if anyone's seen this TV show or knows where it's from. I'm not sure if anyone wants to have a go, or
does anyone have a guess? Either use the chat function or mute yourself. I'm afraid we don't offer any prizes, but so we've got Raj Patel and both Maddie Industry, the BBC Industry show.
Yeah, exactly. It's from Industry. And I'd be interested to know how much of an accurate representation you guys think this is of kind of the sales and trading environment. Because I mean, it's pretty accurate in the sense that that's me surrounded by a lot of men, because it's still a male-dominated industry. And I would say, honestly, it's if you haven't seen it, go see it, because I would say it's a semi-accurate representation of, yeah, someone said the trading floor looked pretty accurate. Yeah, I would say it's a semi-accurate representation of, I mean, not even just physically, but kind of like the high pressure environment, the fast-paced environment, the amount of pressure grads are under as well, and like the amount of interaction between people. So yeah, like I said, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. That's your homework. I would say there's probably a lot less partying than there is in that show, because it would be pretty hard to turn up to work if you were going out that much. There is, of course, like client entertainment and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a slightly exaggerated version of reality, but slightly accurate on the market side. It also kind of gives you the idea of the difference between sales and traders. If you've seen it, you'll know Harper there is a salesperson, and some of the people behind her are traders, and the interaction she has with the clients and with the traders, and she sits between them, which is what I do. So if we can move to the next slide. I'm not sure if I could, yeah. So I kind of wanted to give you an overview more of how I got into the job and how I got to the position I was in. So this is where it all started, University of St Andrews, so beautiful, I missed it a lot. So in my second year of university, I heard a lot of people talking about these things called spring weeks at banks. I had no idea what they were. I had no idea what banking was, but I was a bit of a sheep, and I kind of thought, you know what, if everyone else is applying to them, there's probably something in it and I should apply too. And that's what I did. And I know a lot of people do this in their first year of university, so it's not always second year, because I did a 4-year course. It was in my second year. So if you're in your first year of university and you want to look into getting into banking, spring weeks are definitely something to look up. So I applied to a bunch of different banks, and I ended up getting 2 interviews, and the clue is on the slide. One interview was at a bank called Rothschild, and one interview was at a bank called Citi. I know you're probably all familiar with Citi. Rothschild is a bit of a smaller bank, more M&A focused. They don't have a trading floor. They are mainly M&A, and then they do have a big private wealth management arm as well. But the spring week was for the M&A side. So I remember turning up the interview for my Rothschild interview and sitting in the lobby, and there was another girl there also for an interview for the spring week. And I remember just making small talk with her. She was really lovely, and she was telling me she worked in something real estate related in like part-time while she was studying. And I was obviously like, oh wow, that's impressive. Like I can't compete with that. But I was like, you know what? Everybody's different. And then we had to do a presentation for our interview. We kind of got speaking about the presentation. I asked her what her presentation was on, and she told me it was on mortgage-backed securities, which contributed to the financial crisis. And I was just like, oh shit, like that is like impressive, because my presentation was on the fashion society I started at university. So obviously I kind of went in there thinking I have absolutely no chance. But lo and behold, I got an offer for a spring week at Rothschild. And sorry, I've just seen someone asked, what did you study at university? I studied economics. So it is kind of like a kind of conventional thing that people go into banking from. But I would say it's not, nowadays especially, they like to look for candidates from other fields, not just economics. So it's not the only way. So I got an offer for the spring week at Rothschild, and I also did an interview at Citi, and I got an offer for their Women of Tomorrow program, which was kind of like their spring week for women. And at the end of each spring week, you get an interview. You may or may not get an interview for to go on to their summer internship. So luckily enough, I got an interview at both. The Rothschild interview, I had to propose like a potential merger or acquisition. And I did that. I had to resit the maths test at the office on the day, which I had no idea about. I clearly did not read that email properly. And I failed the maths test, and I did not get an offer for the internship. Citi, a similar thing happened. Citi, like I said, Rothschild was more focused on M&A. Citi is obviously a massive bank, loads of different divisions. We got an overview of all of the different divisions during the 3-day spring week we had, and then we got to choose one to apply to. So Citi's a bulge bracket, obviously. Rothschild's a little bit more of a boutique bank, a smaller bank. So at Citi, I applied to sales and trading because I thought sounded okay. And I remember the interview, the guy asked me, what's the difference between sales and trading? And I honestly did not have any clue what the difference was. So I failed that interview also, and I did not get an interview I did not get an offer for the internship. So there I was 2 spring weeks later, and no internship offers, feeling a little bit depressed and sorry for myself. But I kind of got back on it, and I built a spreadsheet of deadlines. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the application process. It's kind of like applying to as many banks as you can. So I applied to all sorts of things at loads of different banks. I applied to corporate banking, I applied to sales and trading, I applied to investment banking, like mergers and acquisitions. And I had loads of interviews, which is, I know if any of you guys have been to assessment centers, they're really exhausting. So, you know, it was a tiring process. And I remember at one of the interviews, the guy asked me, he drew like the axis of a graph for me, and he said, draw a line between money and happiness. And I just remember sitting there being like, oh my God, like, where am I? So that was an interesting question. I also remember turning up at one interview and not being able to remember what position I'd applied to, because I'd applied to so many different things at so many different banks. And the moral of that story is, don't be like me, be more prepared, know what you're going to interview for, know what you're doing, and understand it. So yeah, had a lot of different interviews, and then I thought about private banking, and I was like, private banking sounds interesting. The hours sound a little bit better. The people sound a little bit nicer. You get to work with ultra high net worth clients. That sounds quite interesting, like something that would be a bit different. And so I applied to Citi for private banking, and I managed to secure a place on their internship. They only had 4 internship positions for private banking. And yeah, I was lucky enough to get one of them, which was great. And it was an amazing experience. Private banking is very different. If anyone's interested in private banking, feel free to message me, because it's a very different industry to kind of sales and trading. The people are lovely. But yeah, it was a great 10 weeks. I put my everything into those 10 weeks. At the end of the internship, there were four interns and 3 positions available. And guess who did not get a position? Yep, me. So realized I was doing something wrong, or it just wasn't meant to be. And I would really emphasize the fact that I think someone mentioned before, it's a really competitive industry. Try and not let it get you down. Rejection is really normal in this industry. It really is kind of a numbers game. I mean, I've heard of very few people getting many offers, but don't feel disheartened if you do get rejection. It's really normal. So yeah, there I was. Yeah, if we can go to the next slide. Yeah, there I was. Yeah, two spring weeks, and then I had the internship. No offers for a grad scheme. And if you follow markets, if you know how volatile the market has been at the moment, that dip in the S&P 500 last year when COVID became real, that was me when I didn't get a grad scheme offer from my private banking internship. It was really tough. Like I say, rejection is normal. Someone's asking, did you get a 2-1 or a first at university? Is it essential for this industry? I got a 2-1. I would say you need at least a 2-1. I think a lot of the applications require a 2-1. I don't think a first is necessary. A first is not essential, I would say. A 2-1. I think they'll also like when you have other interests and hobbies. So if you're part of other societies or part of other kind of clubs and stuff, like for instance, I told you I did my presentation on the fashion society I started at university. They like that because I had a different interest. And I'm not gonna lie, I was never one of those people that's been passionate about finance since the day I was born. And I find it hard to believe that people like that exist, but maybe they do. But that was definitely not me. So yeah, so that's when I wallowed for a bit after I didn't get that internship, that grad scheme. And I did my internship after my last year of university. So it wasn't like a lot of people do it before their last year of university. So they have a year to kind of like, if they don't get it, they have a year to apply to other things. But no, it was after my last year of university. I'd graduated. I was just straight up unemployed. And yeah, it was quite a difficult time. It's not easy. But that's when, if we can go to the next slide. Yeah, spreadsheet 2.0 came into action. Another bulk application process. Networking, I joined an organization called SEO London. If anyone's familiar with that was great for networking. I met so many great people that I still stay in touch with. Yeah, built another spreadsheet, did another bulk application. I considered other options. I think it's really important to consider other options, and I wish I'd been more educated on other options at that time, actually. For example, consulting or asset management or one of the big 4, auditing. things like that. I never even considered it. And I know a lot of you guys probably think, like, you look at that graduate salary and you think, maybe you Google like, what's the highest graduate salary I can make, and a lot of the time it's banking, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean the longevity. Like from consulting, there are some really lucrative careers that you can go into, for example, private equity. And that's something I never thought about before. And I wish I'd thought more about those things before. But I came up with a backup plan. I was writing my own business plan. I was like, you know what, if no one's going to employ me, I'm going to start my own business. So it's always good to have another option and not be totally reliant on one. Like, it's good to be determined to have your mindset on something, but it's always good to have other options and other like backup plans. And so in the end, it was down to, I think I'd been like, I don't think I'd even, because it was after my last year of uni, there were very few people that would consider my application for a grad scheme. So I think I was down to 2 applications, and that was BNP Paribas sales and Wells Fargo real estate. So I got an offer for the BNP Paribas assessment center, went to the assessment center, and they made us do like a surprise presentation on the day, which I'd never had an assessment center before. And you had to do this presentation in front of all the other candidates. And it was one of 3 topics. So it was a life-changing event, an inspirational person, or Brexit. I did mine very cheesily on an inspirational person, which was my mum. And obviously something went right there. But I remember one guy, his life-changing event was the IPO of Facebook, which was interesting. I didn't know that an IPO could change your life, but apparently can for some people. But yeah, so luckily enough, that assessment center went quite well, and I got an offer for that. And I got an offer for the Wells Fargo assessment center after, but I ended up turning it down because I was just so exhausted from all the applications, because it is an exhausting process. And yeah, that was great. I was very happy with that. And then I was like, so I had about 9 months, almost a year off. And I was like, you know what, working for BNP Paribas is a great excuse to go to Paris and pretend I'm learning French whilst eating a lot of croissants and macarons. And that's what I did. I used my time. I didn't just want to sit at home. So I traveled, I lived in Paris. I did some language lessons, and yeah, that was a great year. And obviously it's a great feeling to know that you have a job to come back to. If we can go to the next slide. So I thought I'd touch upon my job a little bit. I'm not sure how much you guys know about kind of sales and trading. I imagine not much, because I didn't know much at your stage. So I thought I'd let you ask questions more specifically if you wanted to about that in the Q&A. But just an overview. So I work in emerging market credit sales, and that's basically trading bonds and credit default swaps, so CDS, of basically all the countries I'd rather be right now. So like Turkey, Colombia, Peru, the UAE, all these emerging markets have to issue bonds or debt, and we trade those bonds. And if you want to know a bit about the grad scheme at BNP, I know it's different at different banks. At BNP, it's a 1-year scheme with 3 rotations. And I was specifically in the sales stream. So I did 2 rotations in sales and 1 in research, because you do 1 out of stream rotation. So yeah, that's a very brief overview of what I do. But again, if you have any more specific questions, you feel free to ask them in the Q&A. And then on to the last slide. Yeah, so some final tips. This is basically just a slide with like every inspirational quote ever on it. Network. I know everybody says that, but you don't need to like be one of those people that just aggressively networks. It's like all the people on this Zoom call right now, they are valuable. Like, be friends with them, get to know them. Like I met some great people through some of the organizations I joined, and a lot of them, like one works at Goldman, one works at Citi, one works at Jpmorgan. It's great to know those people, even if you're just friends with them. Be interested in what you're doing. I would say, even if you're like me, I was not interested in finance or financial markets, but you know, the more you pretend to be interested, the more you become interested. Like, for example, invest, it doesn't even have to be your own money, just invest some fake money on, I'm sure there's websites you can find to invest some fake money, and that's something to talk about in an interview or in your application process, right? If they know you're following markets. And if you do invest your own money, it makes it all the more real, because you want to know what's happening to your money, even if it's just like a small amount of money. Ask questions. Yeah, just if you do get to the stage where you meet someone, just ask a lot of questions. You want to be sick of the sound of your own voice, especially in the sales and trading industry. I would say I'm not the loudest person, and that's probably something I've struggled with. But you want to be vocal. It's quite a vocal industry. The trading floor is quite a vocal place, and like I said, a male dominated place. So if you're a woman also, it's important to make your voice heard. Like I said, rejection is normal. I've had it a lot, as you can see by my journey. So don't feel disheartened, or try not to, and yeah, never give up. But yeah, that's it from me.
Thanks, Jamila. I really enjoyed your presentation there. Just a couple of golden snippets that I picked out from. So hopefully a lot of the guys on this call will remember our last event was about breaking into consultancy, and one of the speakers was Leila Hafar. And I just see so many similarities in terms of what you mentioned and what she mentioned. So for example, she also had a spreadsheet, a list of companies that she went through. So the first point here is rejection is normal. Don't let you dishearten yourself. So I remember Leila talking us through the massive spreadsheet she had, and she had like a traffic light system, and most of it was red. So that's kind of like, for the students out there, if you've done like 10, 20 applications, but sometimes you don't even get a response from the company, that's quite normal, but just don't let that dishearten you. And secondly, one thing I noticed is with Leila, she did a year in China teaching English, and you yourself, you mentioned you set up an initiative on fashion. So the point I'm trying to make here is try to really distinguish yourself. So hopefully for the wider audience, we've been doing these events for like 5-6 months. And the key kind of themes that we're bringing out, and obviously the speakers are saying it on their own behalf, we're not forcing them to say these things, but the key similarities and key themes that keep popping up is, you need to really distinguish yourself. Don't just rely on books yourself. So obviously one of the questions that was posed quite early on is, did you get a 2-1 or a first? Jamila in her case got a 2-1, but it was just much more than that, in the sense that she was able to set up a fashion store XYZ. So that's just kind of like my 2 pence of some really gold snippets here. Just a question from myself, Jamila. I'm breaking my own rules here. I'm not waiting to the Q&A section. But it's just interesting to note, you mentioned how when you're doing a presentation, I think it was at assessment center, you're one of the other candidates did one on mortgages as default and securities, whereas you did yours on fashion. Why do you think yours was you were successful and she was not successful?
Actually, she was successful. We both got offers. Yeah, she was a lovely girl, but like, it's just like they like to see that you have other interests or passions. And you know, I think it shows quality, like if you have different interests. It doesn't have, I think they were more looking also at your presentation skills, like I said, your ability to communicate with people. I think that was what they wanted to. I mean, you're in your first or second year of university, you're not going to be like diehard finance fan. For me anyway, I was not a diehard finance fan.
Yeah, definitely. And that just kind of brings me on to my final point, is just definitely throughout the whole application process, just be yourself as well. Really try to make your personality come to life and kind of highlight that to your various different hobbies and interests. Cool, perfect. Thanks for that, Jamila. Again, really appreciate your presentation. I'm now going to move on to our second speaker, which is Marie Legrand. So if I can invite her to the panel as well and ask her to unmute herself and share her screen, that'll be perfect. Hi, Marie.
Hello.
Hi,
Hope you can
all
hear me
hear.
well. Yeah, perfect. Yep. Well, I'm super excited to be joining you for this conference. And thanks a lot, Jamila, for your presentation before. So quick introduction from me. My name is Marie Legrand. I'm French, as you may have noticed with my accent. I'm currently in my last year in my master's degree in financial markets at a school called the EDEC Business School, which is located in the French Riviera in Nice. and I'm focusing on sales and trading. In this school, I'm also the co-president of EDEC WinFin, which is promoting women in the finance sector. And as Jamila said, there's really still few women in the finance sector. So that's why we decided to create this association. And I'm going to be starting in Jpmorgan as a CDS index trader next August. So basically, how did I get there? So I had to do a gap year with EDEC Business School, which I strongly recommend. It enables you to really discover jobs that you may not have discovered if you didn't do internship. And so we had to do a whole year of internship. I decided to do my first internship in Natixis in sales equity structured products. Then I did one in Jpmorgan in sales structuring, still in equity structured products. And then I did 2 months in trading as a CDS index trader. So focusing on indices, ETFs, TRS, option, and trenches. I don't know if you are familiar with those words, otherwise that's fine. These are pretty technical. So how did I get there? Like the first step, first, I really talk to people on LinkedIn and during networking events. This is really, really important. On LinkedIn, for example, I contacted one person because I was a bit lost. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do as a job, as a career, what finance was like. And so I contacted one person that was working as a sales in structured products. And this person actually was super happy to describe his job, but not only this, they also had an open position and they were looking for an intern, and I got fast tracked for an interview. So this is really, really important to connect to as many people as you want on LinkedIn. Ask them about their job, ask them about their day-to-day basis, the hours. And then during networking events as well, talk to people, understand why they chose this company in particular. So then you really know what you want to do in the future, but also why you want to do it and why this company. This will help you really choose the job you want and your career you want, but also explain it during the interview process. Really give you really be able to give a real reason why you want this career and this company, and not just what is written on their website. Apply. So as Jamila said, you need to do a lot of application. This is some people get lucky, some people do not, and really stay motivated and focused on your goal. This is the main important thing. I sent hundreds of applications for my first internship. Most of them got rejected. I got dozens of interviews. Also, most of them got rejected. And I declined one offer, but that didn't interest me. And finally, after 5 months of searching, I finally got the job I wanted for in Natixis. After arriving in Natixis, I started applying for summers and off-cycle in Jpmorgan. I was really focusing on sales and trading. So I applied online. You need to do a CV. Right now, I think you need to do as well a cover letter, even though in my year you didn't need to do it. You have some tests to do online, that's a bit like game-like. You need to do a high view, which is basically recording yourself answering questions live. Most of the questions are really typical questions like, why should we choose you? Why Jpmorgan? Why sales? Why trading? And if you do your homework, like talking to people and really like looking on their website, you should be able to answer those questions. So really get really prepared for those typical questions before launching the higher view. Then I got invited to an assessment center, which is basically 1 day of interviews. So you have one-on-one interviews with different people. Most of them will be senior people, and you will normally need to meet the whole team. So for me, I got 3 interviews in the morning with managing director and executive director from 3 different teams. Then for lunch, they send half of the students that are here interviewing with you home. And if you're selected, you will meet the whole team that liked you in the afternoon. Because in these big banks, when they take an intern, it means that they have an open position in their team. And so they really want to make sure that they're taking the right decision, and the whole team needs to agree on your position. So the type of question you have, sell me a product, sell me this pen. This is really typical question for sales. They can do a trading game if you're in trading, like make me a market sort of thing. Like you have a bottle, you need to, I don't know, guess the price of an object, for example, a bottle of water, and then make a market, meaning that you need to give the person a bid and then ask a price, depending on the market condition that he's going to create. Maybe, I don't know, a person wants to buy 1,000 bottles of water. Will your price change? How will it change it? How will you adapt to the market condition that the person created? Then
just to interrupt you there, Marie, sorry. Just interesting how you pointed out these various different brain teasers or these hypothetical scenarios they ask you in assessment centers. For any students that are currently going through the assessment center process, how could you actually prepare for these brain teasers, or can you actually even prepare for them? I guess maybe the follow-up question, if you can't prepare for them, how should you approach them?
Okay, so there are really different types of questions. For example, the elevator pitch, which is basically a teaser of what you want to talk about during the interview. You need to get it ready for every interview. It's basically a presentation about yourself. So your name, your studies, what you're interested in, your previous experience, and really what you want to sell as a teaser for the rest of the interview. Then the tell me about the time, TMAT, is really gonna be, you can find them mostly online. Like it's gonna be tell me about the time you had to lead a team, tell me about the time you failed, tell me about the time you were in difficulty, and how did you manage to get out of this difficulty. And those questions mostly can be found online, and you really can prepare them before. And what I will really advise you is really to link those questions and those answers to, for example, your previous experience. For example, tell me about the time you failed. You can talk about your application process or something that happened during school. They really want you to give some real life example. This is really important. For news, they can ask you questions from what level is the S&P, or who is the central bank leader, what are the politics of the central bank right now, what are they doing, was there any interesting topic that, is there any interesting topics that interest you right now? This kind of question for news. Then technical questions, it will really depend on your background, on your previous experiences, and also on the team. If it's a really quantitative team, for example, a quant, it will be really more technical than if it's a sales person. And if you did already 2 internships in, I don't know, CDS trading, and it's a CDS trading team, of course, you will have technical questions. But most jobs in finance are not rocket science. They don't expect you to know everything before you start the internship. They will be able to teach you, and you will need to learn on the job. So the questions are going to be super, super technical, especially if you are in your first year, or if you didn't do a lot of internship before. And then for brain teasers, there are a lot online as well, so you need to prepare them. There are a lot of typical brain teasers. But then you really need to, they really want to understand how you're thinking, what is your thinking like. So when we ask your brain teaser, try to maybe reformulate it in your mind, and then try to answer, maybe show how you're thinking out loud. That's really what they're interested in. They don't want the right answer. They want to understand how you're thinking. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, that was perfect. That was really helpful. Thank you.
So yes, this is about it for the assessment center. If you have any more questions, don't hesitate. Then, so after that, they will probably call your former bosses and colleagues. So I was interning in Natixis when I applied for the job in Jpmorgan, and I know they called about 4 people on the trading floor to be sure that I was really talking to trading, that I was talking to structuring, that I was good at the job I was doing. And really, it's really important to keep a good relationship with all your previous bosses and colleagues, and really talk to as many people as you can. People on the floor need to know you, need to know who you are and how you're doing, because even in the future, people are going to ask about you. And then in the end, if you're successful, they will call you 1 week later, something like that. Then you get your internship, which is a summer, an off cycle, whatever. What you need to know to actually secure the offer on the job. Well, don't forget to learn. They don't expect you to know everything beforehand, but they expect you to learn. They expect you to progress. So I don't know, really like talk to people, ask questions, be curious. This is really important. Then network. Most finance jobs or sales jobs, so event trading, event structuring. So they're really expecting you to talk to other teams, to talk to your colleagues, talk to other interns. Really be interested, be curious, be open-minded. This is super important. And work hard. Dedication pays off, especially in investment banking. For example, last year in March, when the COVID crisis hit, I was interning in sales, and we didn't have much work to do in sales for like, I don't know, 1 or 2 weeks. So I asked if I could work with the trading team as well, in addition. And so I did start interning with the Delta One trading team. And what happened is that after a few months, my team realized that they lost their headcount, which means they could not hire me in the end of my internship because of the crisis. And but because I worked super hard during my internship, because I talked to so many people, because I asked to work with a trading team, I had some trading experience as well, they recommended me to a trading team in credit. And that's how I got my interview for my summer. And I got the job in credit trading because I showed dedication, because I talked to people during my sales job. So this is really important. And to sum up, so my little advice, it's very funny because the first one is the same as Jamila. So really network. This is so important on the job, before, after. It's really about meeting interesting people, becoming friends, and it's people that you're going to keep in contact for your future career. Maybe they're going to become clients, maybe they're going to become your boss. It's really like networking is super important. Then stay motivated. Maybe the first application is not going to be the right one. Maybe the team is not going to like you, maybe you're not going to like them. Just stay motivated, stay focused on your goal, and remain open-minded. Maybe you thought you wanted to do M&A, and in the end, M&A is not working for you. Don't worry, you will find something that really is interesting to you, but stay open-minded. Feedback, always ask for feedback from your team, from your colleagues, maybe from other students. What do you think I should improve? Always work hard. That's what you need to do to be in investment banking. And don't be scared, just go for it. Maybe you don't come from the best university, maybe you don't have the best, I don't know, score in your exams. That's okay, just go for it, keep on working, and you will manage to get what you want in the end.
Thank you for that, Marie. That was really insightful, really helpful. Just a word out to our attendees. I promise you we didn't make Marie and Jamila collude, and you're probably sick of the word network. So hopefully that was really mindful. I must admit, Marie, I'm quite jealous or envious the fact that your university is based in the French Riviera. Like I came from Manchester University and it's just full of rain, so I am a bit envious of that. But perfect. Again, thank you again for your time, Marie. Okay, guys, I'm just going to again share my screen and direct your attention towards our Q&A. I am going to slightly jump the gun in the sense that, oops, wrong one. That we do have a breakout room, but once I get myself organized, I'll be able to explain what that entails. Okay, here we go. So as usual, as mentioned, we have a Q&A session, and I can see we've already got quite a few questions coming in through, and that will last until 2:15. The event or the webinar will officially end at 2:15, but we do have almost in inverted commas a bonus section, and that's for anyone who wants to stay on. We do have 2 separate breakout rooms. For the first one will be hosted by Mohammed Hafar. So a bit of background about Mohammed. He has an experience in IB and also consultancy, and he's going to have a breakout room on Pitch Me a Stock. If that will be at 1:15, I'll explain the logistics on how, if you want to stay on and how you join that breakout room specifically. And the second one will just be a bit more informal networking, and that will be with our founder, Ali Ahmed. So that's these 2 breakout rooms will happen after 1:15. We'll formally, just to reiterate, we will formally conclude the event at 1:15 after the Q&A, and then we will, for those that want to stay on, for those that have extra time, you can join out the breakout rooms. But now let's just kind of move on to the Q&As. So if again, I can invite Marie and Jamila to the webinar, unmute themselves and show their camera. I'm going to run through a couple of the questions and kind of manage this. If I can just kind of a quick scan across, please kind of like put your names on there as well. It'd be good to kind of do some recognition and some acknowledgement on who posted these questions. Okay. Okay, I've got first question coming out towards Jamila. Again, this is from an anonymous student, and I'm going to dictate the question. I am a first year student at the University of Manchester doing IBFE, so International Business and Finance. I just wanted to know what all the opportunities are available for a first year student who wants to pursue a career in finance.
Yeah, sure. I would say, kind of like I mentioned, probably the main one is spring weeks. I'm not sure. I know March is the time for a lot of the deadlines for that. So maybe have a look if there are any open, I believe it, or maybe March is when, maybe the deadlines are earlier. I'm not exactly sure. But if you're a first year student, I would definitely say spring weeks is the most important. Usually your university may have, is that, if your course is 4 years, someone's just said my course is 4 years. If your course is 4 years, you can still apply to spring weeks, or you can apply to spring weeks. My course was 4 years also. You can apply to spring weeks in your second year. But yeah, if your uni do any events with banks, definitely attend all of those, get to know as many people, keep in touch with them, follow up with them, that kind of thing. If you have any friends just in the industry, kind of just meet as many people.
Just to add on to that, obviously my background is auditing and accountancy related. And I think in my first year, I attended an insight day at PwC. So it's not necessarily a full internship, but just to give you exposure to the day-to-day job at a Big Four life, but it definitely resonates those words that you mentioned there, Jamila. Moving on to you, Marie. The next question posed is, I have had several digital interviews, but I could not pass them. I know most companies and big banks use AI, artificial intelligence, but what exactly should I do to succeed?
Okay, so I know for Jpmorgan, for example, analysts are asked to look at the videos. So it's not just artificial intelligence that is looking at the videos. Some are actually like real people, real analysts watching the videos after. What should you do? Honestly, just you need to be prepared for this question. Most of the people think, okay, you have, I don't know, 30 seconds to get ready. So you should get ready during this 30 seconds. But most of the people, they already know the question and they already know how to answer. So prepare as many questions as you can. But this is not just for the higher view, but also for just normal interview process. You should write as many questions as you can on like a word or something, and then prepare them. You need to honestly know them by heart and so well that when you answer them, it looks super fluent. This is honestly my best advice. And then just like search on the website, what are the kinds of questions that Jpmorgan is asking, what are the kind of questions BNP is asking, and just try to answer as many as possible.
Perfect, thanks. Shabazz, just coming over to you. I know you've got a question to ask. If I can ask you to unmute yourself and just ask your question. So over to you, Shabazz.
Yeah, I've got a question for Marie. So when COVID hit, how did you adapt your networking strategy at Jpmorgan?
Yeah, so this is a super good question. Because right now, most people are working from home, so it's a bit different than before. But I was super lucky, kind of, because when COVID hit, my team, myself, and also my trading team were still working in the office. So the only time I didn't work in the office was when I actually like caught COVID. So I was really lucky for this. But you kind of need to adapt as well, because some people are working from home, some people are working in different buildings. So you still need to adapt. What you do is, as most people are working from home, right now it's also more easy to contact them, for example, via LinkedIn, or ask them to have a call, because it's not like before COVID, people were expecting you to go talk to them in person and have a coffee with them. But right now, it's actually really good for you students that maybe can't go to London to talk to people. It's just that they are used to have like online networking session. So you can just ask them, okay, maybe the market closed at 5. Can we have a call around 5:30? Just like 5 minutes, so you can explain me like what is your day-to-day basis, this kind of stuff. I don't know if I answered your question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Shabazz, as well. Coming back to you, Jamila, this is a question coming from Tom Myers. What are the key skills needed to work in sales and trading, and how could I develop them whilst at university?
That's quite a tough one. I mean, I would say it's a lot of communication. Like you need to, I like Marie was saying, I think it's also kind of a blessing that you don't need to, that you weren't in the office, because when I was doing my grad scheme, it's like you had to just go up to people on the trading floor. And if you've ever been on a trading floor, if a trader's not in a good mood and you go up to them, it can not be the best, but you need to build those skills of confidence and communication. And I think those are probably the most important. Obviously, like there's the analytical, depends what you want to be. And if you want to be in something more technical, like trading, there's obviously more technical skills to be built. But in terms of sales, I would say communication and confidence. And you can build that by just, I know it's difficult. Hopefully things will go back to normal, but just speaking to as many people as you can, going to events, and practicing really helps.
A question for you, Marie. This is coming from Noor Sultan. She's interested in learning more about investment and trading as a whole. And she's asking, what literature should she start reading, and which subject will help me in the future?
This is a really good question. I'm coming from a financial background, because I'm studying at EDHEC Business School, which is a financial markets master. So I didn't have to read any additional books, but I think the whole options and futures is really the basic for sales and trading. Then I don't know if Jamila has any other literature to recommend.
I would probably say like the classic books that everybody's kind of read, like I can't remember the name. There's a movie, kind of any Michael Lewis book I would read as well, because I'm sure a lot of people will have read them. But yeah, if you want something more technical, I think it's a bit different, but kind of anything Wolf of Wall Streety is always interesting.
Cool. Just sticking with you, Jamila. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Marie.
No, it's just for me. You don't need, it's really good to read books to learn more about finance and be more technical as well. but really the basic of what you need to do, I think you can learn them by just asking questions to people. For example, if you go to Jamila and you ask them, you ask her, okay, what are emerging markets? What is it like to be a salesperson? I think you can learn more about what is going on in the market right now and what are jobs like right now by just asking the people directly.
Coming back to you, Jamila, we have the most popular question with 3 likes. Would you recommend a summer internship or a placement year?
That's quite tough because I never really did or never really considered a placement year, but I know people that have done placement years and they've worked really well for them and they've acted as a kind of a foot in the door to an investment bank, but I've never had experience with one, so I can't really comment. But internships are, it kind of depends if you want to add a year to your degree and do a year in industry. I think there's an separate application process for that, but if you want an internship and then have the possibility of going straight into work after uni, probably an internship. Sorry, I couldn't be more helpful with that.
And then Murray got an interesting question here regarding the competitiveness of investment. Oh, sorry, this disappeared. Regarding the competitiveness of investment banking, how can you differentiate yourselves to the applicants?
Super good question. Actually, we ask it during every interview. So why yourself? This you really need to think about your skills, what you did in the past, what can really differentiate you. For example, your volunteering experience. I did 2 volunteering experience. One in an association for Ukraine children, and one right now as a co-leader of WinFin. I think like interviewer, like just normal people, they are cool talking about your job, talking about finance, talking about technical questions. They also want to know more about you and why they will want to work with you. Because a lot of people are technical, a lot of people are smart, but at the end of the day, especially in investment banking, you're going to work a lot of hours, and they really want to know why, and if they could work with you during these long hours. And I think that's what you need to focus on as well. For example, me, they were super interested with my volunteering experience in Ukraine. But I think, yeah, you need to think about your side hobbies. Did you maybe start a little business? Or you need any association? What kind of sport do you like? This kind of stuff.
Yeah, perfect. Jamila, coming back to you, I've got an interesting question. So this person, just to be of context, this person currently works as an actuary in an actuarial firm as a programming developer and wants to move into investment banking. Do you need specific experience in investment banking, or could he make that transition? Is that opportunity to do that transition available for him in moving into the graduate intake for sales and trading?
I'm not sure if they'd consider you for the graduate intake, but I think the skills of actuarial skills are probably very valuable and relevant to investment banking. I actually know a guy that rejected his grad offer to go into becoming an actuary because the hours weren't for him and the environment wasn't for him. So I think the skills are really relevant. I'm not sure what your entry point would be, but again, I think it's all about the network. Try and like Marie said, contact people on LinkedIn, get to know people that way, and I'm sure you could find an opportunity.
So just a quick specific question for you, Marie, coming in based on one of your points that you mentioned in your presentation. Where did you find those most asked questions that are asked in the online video interviews? I think maybe we can send that across separately. Actually, just taking a step back, we'll send that across separately on our Instagram page and kind of divert you guys to the specific resources. Moving on, just kind of similar to what you mentioned earlier, Jamila, just sticking with you. You talked about in IB being a very male-dominated industry. So the question posed here is: have you ever felt pressured by it?
Pressured by it in what sense? I mean, there's definitely, I want to be honest, it can be a challenging industry. And that's why I said if you don't consider yourself in a fast-paced, high-pressure environment, perhaps it's not for you. And there's no shame in that. There's absolutely no shame in that. I find it challenging every single day. There can be pressure depending on what you're talking about. Feel free, if you don't want to say it on here, feel free to message me on LinkedIn afterwards if you have a more specific question. But it's definitely a balance. It's definitely come a long way from what it used to be, but there's still challenges for sure.
Yeah, perfect. Well answered. Marie, coming to you, I've got a question from Momin Shazad. So his end goal, I'm just going to read out his question. My end goal is to be a quantitative analyst. He wants to use both his mathematical and coding skills. I know it's a tough job to break into and quite far into the future, but what would your advice be for someone who wants to get into this career and how to prepare early?
So if you're super interested already in coding and math, first of all, like especially in this quantitative job, I think you really need to specialize, like have a real degree in math or in engineering. This is super important. Honestly, I think you can access trading or sales job without really like an engineering degree or without a really like technical degree and without a lot of technical knowledge. But I think for quant, you really need to have this technical background. If you're interested in coding, then you should definitely like try to do some project by yourself. Maybe, I don't know, did you try to code an option, try to code a different product? I think this is really interesting. Like try to mix your coding abilities with the financial market. I think this is really a first step.
Yeah, makes sense. Jamila, just a question for you. Apologies just in advance if I mispronounce his name, but this is from Baharat. And he's asking, well, I'm just going to kind of refine his question. Firstly, what practical, technical models are used in the real world? So, for example, discounted cash flow model, MPV. So I guess the point is how do we get a head start and knowing which models are used in the practice in the real world?
I think that's probably more of an M&A kind of thing, DCF and stuff like that. What models I use day to day? Absolutely none. It's just more about the market moves. So I would say that's probably all. Like the traders might use certain things, but I don't think. Yeah, I would say that's more if you want to go into M&A, they're more relevant. I'm not sure if Marie would agree. I'm not sure if there's any specific things she uses.
Again, sticking with Bharat, Marie, the question is, he's currently applying for the asset management trainee program at Jpmorgan. So what specific advice do you have in him, or what is the kind of the key takeaways as part of his application process would you recommend?
Other than the previous advice we gave, that is networking, go talk to people. I talked to a lot of people before actually applying for Jpmorgan because I wanted to go in asset management. I mean, I was a bit lost. And they're really open and normally they are super easy to reach out to just ask questions to them, like what is the job like the different job inside of asset management, for example, the different divisions. Other than that, I don't think I have specific any advice for asset management as I didn't work in it. But yeah, just prepare the question, talk to people, and yes.
Makes sense. Jamila, just a question coming to you from Matai. So his long-term goal is to work in private equity, and his question is, what would be other sectors I can join apart from IB that can help me achieve my long-term goal in working in private equity?
I'm fairly sure. So investment banking is a primary one. Consulting as well. If you can get something at one of the big consulting firms, I think that's very valuable as well. And I think mainly private equity and venture capital firms look for people from those kind of backgrounds, typically.
Marie, got a question from you from a student who's in the second year and they're looking for a career in investment banking / finance. So far, they've done a number of different applications for internship but had no success. And secondly, there's not that many opportunities, or kind of the cycle for recruitment is almost coming to a close at this time of the year. What advice would you have for her moving forward, or him?
Okay, so I think even with Jamila, we did a lot of applications that were not successful in the beginning. I applied for 5 months straight, and I didn't get any successful application or any job that I really wanted, and I was seeing myself doing. Honestly, the best advice I can give is just like to keep trying, focus on the jobs you really want to have, focus, like maybe just review your CV. Is it okay? Review your cover letter, maybe like ask friends or like family to read it as well. Make sure it's perfect. Then if you are going into an interview and it's not going well, or maybe it's going well, ask for feedback. Always ask for feedback so you can improve in the future. Always network. Some opportunities are not available online, but some teams still have open positions. So don't hesitate to contact people that you're interested in the job, and ask them, don't ask them like, okay, do you have a job for me? But okay, what is your job like? Actually, I'm interested in it. Do you know if you will have any opportunity in your team or in your company? Then I think that's it. But just like keep on trying. Like I think it's hard for everyone to find a job, but you will get it in the end, of course.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Marie. I'm conscious of time, so just gonna moving on to the last couple of questions. So one for you, Jamila. The question states, should we do CFA to improve our chances of getting into investment banking? And secondly, if so, when can we start the course at the earliest?
So I would say CFA is definitely super valuable. Again, depends what you want to do. I would say probably less. So it is valuable for sales and trading and markets, but probably more if you want to go into something more investment banky, like M&A analytical. Definitely really valuable. If you have the time to do it, I would definitely recommend doing it. I'm not sure when you can do it at its earliest. I imagine you can do it after uni, or while you're at uni even. And I would say definitely try and do it before, if you have free time, definitely try and do it before you start working, because I know a lot of do it whilst they're working, and I think that can be hard to manage. They have to take their holidays as study leave. I'm not sure when you can take it, but it's valuable for sure.
Just kind of looking through the next couple of questions, kind of to you, Marie, given you did a master's yourself. So the question states, would you recommend doing a master's in finance as opposed to doing a CFA?
I think it's 2 different things, and it depends also where you are applying and to which company. I know in France, you need to do a master in finance or a master in engineering to actually get into a French bank. This is like really, really important. Then I know that in the UK, it's less like that. People don't need to have a master to get into investment banking jobs. Most of the people in my team that I'm going to be joining only have a bachelor, and not a bachelor in finance, but maybe like economy or something like that. So it really depends on what you want to do after. Maybe a master is also will let you reflect a bit more on what you want to do. Maybe you will have more the opportunity to do internship. It's a bit different. CFA is just an exam. It's just going to test your knowledge. A master, you're going to have the opportunity to be with other students. You're going to be able to be in contact with companies through your career center, for example. It depends on really like what you want to do. Are you able to work by yourself? Maybe the CFA will be a good thing. But if not, financial market master is definitely a good thing.
Yeah, perfect. Makes sense. So just going to whittle down to the last question here, and this is for you, Jamila. We got a question from Oliver. How does credit sales differ from different desks on the trading floor?
It's different. It's just different asset classes. Like for example, so there's credit sales, there's equity derivative sales, which I've never had experience in, FX sales, which I have had some experience in. That was much faster paced. That was much more kind of just like pricing things. Credit sales is a little bit more like, obviously they say everything's going to be automated in sales. I would say FX is very close to that. Credit sales, especially emerging markets and the more complex products, is probably going to take a while because there's not as much liquidity. You have to understand the product a little bit more. So your client relationships are a little bit more important. So I would say that's kind of how credit sales differs. I'm sure Marie has an opinion on it as well. She works in credit trading. She knows that the product's a bit more complex.